So I just did an at-home sleep study test, which involved a oximeter for the finger and a nasal unit that measured the pressure to tell how well you were breathing through your nose and through your mouth, because your nose and mouth are connected, of course. And as it turns out, I had another oximeter, so I had my own personal oximeter running at the same time on the other finger, but I also had my watch running to see what it did. And I just wanted to show you how a Galaxy watch measures the items that it has for sleep. Now, clearly, it's not doing levels of breathing because this isn't in your nose. But what it's got is it says that I was in bed for 10 hours and 15 minutes. So 2:45 a.m. to 1 p.m. My actual sleep time was 8 hours and 30 minutes. So it'll show you sleep score. My sleep score is 54 because I woke up a bunch because I was doing this whole sleep study thing and I had tubes in my nose. So, and there were other noises going on. So I was awake for an hour 40 minutes out of that. I had REM sleep for an hour 53 minutes. I was in light sleep for 5 hours 18 minutes. Deep sleep for an hour 24 minutes. I'm trying to see if this is focusing. It's hard for me to tell. That looks like that might be better focused. Says I didn't snore, and snore detection is on. And that's the bottom, and then the help button. So on the watch itself, you get just very basic information, and the little zigzaggy lines area is the typical range for you. So like usually I get more REM sleep, but like I said, I was having having tubes on me, plus having different noises waking me up and such. And I laid in bed for a little longer because I was looking through all the paperwork and everything once I woke up. So this is the information you get on your watch. And then on the phone itself, I will append some screenshots so you can see what the phone side looks like, because this just shows you total time, but the phone will show you overtime, if you were doing things at 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning or so on. So you get a sense of when things were happening over the course of the sleep period. So I will transition to those slideshows next. So now we're in the Samsung Health app on my smartphone, which ties with Bluetooth to my watch. So it knows that on Thursday, February 23rd, I got the 10 hours, 15 minutes that the watch itself was recording, and that I had actual sleep time of 8 hours and 30 minutes, and then it makes a guesstimate of the number of calories burned. The phone is not recording this data. It's the watch that's recording it, and then the watch transmits to the phone, and the phone then keeps track of it over time to give you all the histories and the summaries of how you are doing in a day-to-day, which you can see up in the top area that is keeping track each day of it. And on a day-to-day basis, you can see it's got 7 days or 31 days or 12 months. It can tell you the averages for that time. And if you click on one of them, it can give you the basic details, which is the same thing that we saw previously in the watch about the number of hours you were awake, or REM sleep, or in light sleep, or in deep sleep. So this is the summary level where you can scan on a weekly or monthly basis and see if you've got some sorts of trends going and what your averages tend to be for the type of sleep that you get, which is really useful. But of course, it's even more useful to go down to a particular day and see the details for that. So this is the chart you get. You get the same 8 hours, 30 minutes, and the estimate of calories burned. But the sleep chart will show you hour by hour when you're waking up, when you're in REM sleep, and when you're in light sleep and deep sleep. And then in the lower area, it's got that same sleep stages that we were discussing earlier, where it shows you the percentage of time. But I find the chart of time much more useful to tell me, oh, look, I woke up for a while at, what is that, 8 a.m. And that happened to be when we were getting an oil delivery, so the oil delivery woke me up. So I can usually correlate any substantial waking up times with something that was happening. And for the really short ones, often it's just that you wake up briefly because you heard a noise or something and you don't even remember it. You just woke up and maybe you didn't even open your eyes. You're just awake for a moment or two and then you fall back asleep. And the watch can tell those things, and I'll mention there's a snore detection on the bottom of that. That's the phone part that's listening to the snore detection. I'm pretty sure it's the phone and not the watch that's paying attention to the snore detection. But that's an audible alert that it's getting. So let's talk about how it can even know these things or make guesses. Clearly, these are all guesses that it's making. But the way that it is guessing what sleep stage you're in without having actual electrodes on your brain to be able to tell that way is based on your heart rate, which it knows from your watch because your watch can keep track of your heart rate, and by your movement because your watch can do step counting and it does that by the movement of your body. So it is tracking both your heart rate and the amount you move. So when you're awake, even if you're laying there in bed, you tend to do little twitches or movements or other kinds of things as you're watching TV or reading a book. And if your heart rate is at a higher level, we'll say a normal resting level, and you're making little movements, then it knows that you're awake and it will make that guess for your awake status. Once you start to fall asleep and fade into light sleep, your heart rate lowers, but you've still got a little bit of movement going on. So once your heart rate goes below whatever threshold it has set to make its decisions, then it assumes that you're in a light sleep now, and that tends to be what most of your sleep is going to be at. But once your body goes into a true deep sleep, you stop moving. Your body is now, in essence, frozen, and your movement sensor on your watch can tell that. So now it knows that you've got a lower heart rate and that you're not moving at all, and this must be a good deep sleep. Now, oddly, you would think when you were dreaming that it would be the same as deep sleep, but what actually happens is that your body's movement locks so that you're not running around or jumping or racing or whatever it is that you're doing in your dream, but your heart rate increases because your heart is all excited about all this running and jumping or whatever it is you're doing in the dream. So REM sleep, you will have a higher heart rate, but still no movement. And that's how the watch can judge as you're moving between the different levels. It's based on the heart rate that you've got, based on what your heart rate tends to be, and then the amount of even small movements. Not talking about like kicking around in bed as movement. We're just talking about little twitches that you tend to make when you are more awake or slightly asleep, and that you absolutely do not make when you're in deep sleep or dreaming, at least for most people. You know, there's people who sleepwalk and stuff, but we're talking about most people. Their body will lock when they get into that deep sleep or REM state because the body doesn't want a person who's dreaming about jumping to be jumping around in the bed. So it's a natural way that our body copes with the dream state. So again, these are all guesses. It's doing the best that it can, and you would get better information if you actually had electrodes on your brain and were recording brain waves, but I think it's still pretty cool that it can do it to this level just with being able to track your heart rate and with tiny movements of your body. So this is all how the Samsung Health app shows the data from your Samsung Galaxy Watch. Let me know if you have any questions. Clearly, the watch that I have is not a cutting edge watch, so there are newer watches that have even more kinds of data in them, but I'm pretty impressed with what this watch will provide as far as data goes. All right, let me know if you have questions.